Let's pretend for a moment that you're running a marathon. Over the course of those 26 miles, you're probably going to assess how things are going at different times throughout the race to make sure you're doing your best. Well, we do something similar in schools throughout an instructional cycle. As material is being presented, teachers employ a number of different assessments to ensure every student has a chance to succeed. We call these checks for understanding assessment types, and we'll review them in this video. There are 3 types of assessments: formative assessments, interim assessments, and summative assessments. These assessment types can be classified based on their proximity to learning. Formative assessments are the closest to learning. Interim assessments check understanding partway through a learning period, and summative assessments come at the end. Let's start with formative assessments. These are low-stakes assessments that seek to improve teaching and learning as the learning is unfolding. They serve as a quick, informal check-in to see whether students are understanding the concepts being taught. These assessments could be an ungraded quiz game during a lesson, or as simple as a chat with a student after class. With these, teachers are able to make changes in real time about how they're instructing, and students are also able to make changes in real time about how they're learning. So in our marathon example, this might be check-ins on your pace, your heart rate, and energy or hydration levels as you complete each mile, as this information can be immediately used to improve your performance. For instance, if your pace and heart rate are low, but you find your energy level is high, you might consider running a little faster. This is similar to how formative assessments are used in the classroom to make needed changes during the instructional cycle. Whereas formative assessments appear all throughout an instructional cycle, an interim assessment, which is sometimes referred to as a benchmark, will appear partway through the instructional cycle. These are used to track students' progress towards their learning goals. Since they arrive in the middle of an instructional cycle, they're able to provide feedback on several learning targets, including what has been retained thus far, while still leaving time to make changes before the end of the instructional period arrives. Returning to our marathon, we could think of the interim assessment as the time checks you make at the 10-mile or 20-mile mark to ensure that you're on pace with your expected times. You might ask yourself, what is your projected finishing time based on your current pace? How are you feeling so far? What changes should you make over the back half of the race? An interim assessment provides an opportunity to reflect back on everything that has happened so far, while still allowing for time to make adjustments before the finish line approaches. Lastly, we have summative assessments. These come at the end of an instructional cycle. At this point, the teacher has taught all the material, the student has received ample time and support to learn it, so we're ready to see what they know and can do. Summative assessments, therefore, evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional cycle by comparing it against some standard or goal. So for our marathon example, this could be your final time and placement in the race. Without this information, it would be difficult for you to evaluate how you did overall, making this an essential assessment. Your final time provides context and a goal for the information you gained from the formative and interim assessments, arming you with the information you need to finish even higher in your next race. We've looked at assessment types in terms of proximity to learning so far, but as we wrap up, we can also think about them in terms of frequency. The majority of assessments will be formative, since these are the closest to learning. There are typically fewer interim assessments and even less summative assessments within an instructional cycle. It's worth noting that each of these assessment types is needed to reach our goals. Just as a marathon runner needs to conduct different checks at various stages in the race, students and teachers need formative, interim, and summative assessments to help determine whether learning goals are being met. So the next time you're looking at one of these assessment types, think of them from the perspective of a runner. Each one is needed in this race.